Hi, it's Sarah Gibson Tuttle, the founder of Olive and June. Can I tell you the one thing that always makes my day better? A fresh manicure. But here's the thing, who has the time or budget to go to the nail salon every week? That's why we created the Olive and June Gel Mani System. It gives you that same glossy, long-lasting mani you get at a salon for so much less. It comes with everything you need, a pro-level LED lamp, salon-grade tools, our damage-free gel polish that lasts up to 21 days. Just prep, paint, cure, and you're good to go. And the best part, it's so easy and super affordable. So skip that $80 salon appointment. Get that salon quality look at home on your schedule. Head to oliveandjune.com/ManiMagic20 and use code ManiMagic20 for 20% off your first gel system. That's oliveandjune.com/ManiMagic20, code ManiMagic20 for 20% off your first gel mani system.
Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Raising Cane studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Raising Cane studio downtown in the capital city on this Monday. Hope your work week's off to a good start. Chilly out there for the first time all year, but it's a nice start to this work week. Got Jordan Kitchens, Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos, and happy you're here with us. Tigers on the hardwood tonight. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Brian Kelly rejecting settlement offers, as he probably should. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well. The Saints got a win yesterday in Carolina, heading to the bye week on a winning note. And, of course, LSU and Alabama unfolded the way it did on Saturday night. We're talking about all of it, including my SEC picks against the spread. At the top of hour number 2, Denton Day with us at the bottom of hour number 2. Let's crank it up the way we do every day with our Genesis opening drive.
It's time for Hunt's opening drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
LSU loses 20-9 to Alabama in Tuscaloosa on Saturday. This one's pretty simple to break down, candidly. You look at LSU defensively in this game, you hold Alabama to 20 points. That's the fewest the Tide has scored against anybody outside of ULM all season. You held Alabama to 4 of 13 on third downs. They only scored 3 points in the second half. Ty Simpson only completed 60% of his throws, only had 1 touchdown pass. Alabama could not run the ball at all in this game, finished the ball game rushing 26 times for just 56 yards. That's 2.2 yards per carry. LSU defensively did plenty enough to win this game. But the fact of the matter is the offense just isn't good enough. And we talked about this on Friday, and we talked about it really all of last week, how LSU could go win this game. And you were going to have to be extremely efficient and clean. You were going to have to do the small things very well. And then you were going to have to go get points in the red zone. And in fact, LSU was the exact opposite of all of that. You said you were going to go over there and pick a fight with your shoulder pads and face mask. You said you were going to go over there and run the football. You ran it 26 times for 59 yards. Harlan Berry's line looks okay, 12 carries for 66 yards. He had the 37-yarder, which was really LSU's only truly effective rush in the game. So you didn't run the ball, and then you didn't do the things that you had to do, like score in the red zone. We mentioned all last week, gave it as my key to the victory on the pregame show, did a whole segment on it last week. Like, you have to be better in the red zone offensively. You got into the red zone 4 times on offense. You had a missed chip shot field goal and then 3 field goals. You didn't score a touchdown. You'll never win doing that. You can't. And 2 of the red zone offensive possessions ended up in long field goal attempts because you backed way up out of there with penalties and sacks and negative plays. Your red zone efficiency was just awful, and it had to be really, really good. Other issues that you ran into in this game. You line up to go for a 4th down and 1. You jump off sides. Got a punt. You have Trey'Dez Green wide open on a 3rd down play, and you hit him right in the hands, and he drops it. Your field goal kicker can't do the things that he needs to do early in the game to set the tone on that first drive. Like, just Very simple things. Don't jump off sides. Catch the football when it's right in your hands. Make a chip shot field goal. LSU is going to have to do all of this well. And the offense did almost none of it well. Almost none of it. And that's what it comes down to. This is an Alabama defense that is not great. It's not. You look at those uniforms and you think about what you've seen the last 15 years, and you have one picture in your mind. Everybody's had some success moving the football in this Alabama team. Vanderbilt's hitting 60-yard touchdown runs on their first drive. Florida State's running for 230. Georgia's running for 6 yards a carry on these guys. Like, everybody's moving the ball. Missouri didn't have the ball very much in that game, but they ran it when they needed to. And LSU was just essentially inept. You look at the total yardage in this game, and LSU was 173 passing and under 60 rushing. In terms of your total offense in this game, 232. And you won time of possession. That's another thing that we wanted to talk about last week. If, like, hey, you got to go out there and control time of possession in this game with the ground game. And LSU won time of possession. Won it by about 3 minutes. But you weren't effective when you had the ball. And I thought LSU did some things differently in this game. Early on, very, very obvious. You're going to move the pocket a little bit. Get Garrett Nussmeier moving, help the offensive tackles, make the pass rush a little bit less effective, cut down half the field, and let's go. And they did that well. Garrett Nussmeier threw the ball well on the run a couple times. That looked good. You didn't have as many RPOs. I know Matt Flynn has talked about that a ton on the morning show. There weren't as many of those. You got under center. You ran play action from under center. There were some things LSU tried to do differently, but ultimately, it's not good enough. You're not explosive. Did not create explosive plays in the game. You look at the big play numbers. Alabama did some of that. Gains of 15 plus. They had 7 of them. LSU did not have a play in the game over 20 yards. Bama had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. LSU had none. So you're not explosive. You're not consistent on the ground. And you basically limit yourself offensively to just short passing game. That's kind of what you are. Just a lot of screens. And it's two different play callers. And I ultimately think that it kind of boils down to the fact that your offensive line just doesn't get the job done. They just don't. And it's not 100% that. We're going to talk. I'm compartmentalized this show here. We're going to talk quarterbacks exclusively in the next segment. I'm not burying that aspect to it. It's massive. But they played the game. I want to talk about this. Frank Wilson talked about the quarterbacks today. I want to do that. We're sticking with the game on Saturday night. It's not 100% on the offensive line, but I think that there is a significant feeling that there's too big a risk to try to stretch it down the field because the offensive line's not going to hold up for that. And then you look at the running statistics, and we've had two different play callers now, Joe Sloan and Alex Atkins, same ineffective running. You know it's not because the running backs can't do it. Those guys are talented players. So you've eliminated the ability to throw the ball deep, and you don't run it very well. How easy is that to defend for a defense? I don't have to worry about getting beat deep, and I don't have to worry about them mauling me at the point of attack and essentially chipping away 5-8 yards at a time. Now it's just some short stuff on the outside. Play press coverage, tell your corners to make sure they tackle, creep the safeties up, ball game. And that's all Alabama had to do on Saturday. You created some drives, but you can't finish them. And that's largely because you can't run the ball when you get down there. It's incredibly frustrating. It's really is surprising to me. Like we talked about all August, said all August, hey, this thing could come apart if the offensive line really struggles. And we're out there, and they can't block Bernard Gooden, and the sacks are piling up, and the running game's not good except for one play a day. They break a long one. And I said, like, if this thing goes really south, it's probably because the offensive line's not good. And I guess that did happen. But it's tough to look at this offense, and I've done this exercise a billion times, so I apologize for being so repetitive. But it's the way I feel. Like, I know some of these guys are really good SEC players. Like, Berrien Brown has a track record. Xavier Thomas has a track record. Aaron Anderson, when he's healthy, has a track record. Bauer Sharp played last year. Caden Durham had some big games last year. Harlem Berry's had some big games this year. Trey Green, we know, is a matchup problem. Garrett Nussmeier threw for 4,000 yards last year. And it just doesn't work. And I can't look beyond what they do up front. Maybe that's unfair. Maybe somebody who's got a deeper knowledge of what goes on in the X's and O's can more adequately relay this. But every single team, all of them, 100% of the Power 4 teams that Alabama played this year did a better job than LSU offensively. 100%. Vanderbilt, Missouri, Tennessee, Georgia, Florida State, everyone is more effective than that. And that's hard for me to reconcile because I'm confident that all of those teams don't have significantly better players than LSU. How else am I supposed to say that? Everyone is better than you against that team. That's hard to swallow. And everyone's going to try to pin blame, and you'll hear offensive line, you'll hear Joe Sloan, you'll hear Garrett Nussmeier, you'll hear Brian Kelly, you'll hear all of it. And nobody's blameless here. But as a collective, as a unit, this group that continues to go out week after week after week and cannot crack 25 points in an era of college football where points for a lot of teams seem pretty easy to come by is still, in the big picture, pretty stunning when you look at the collection of athletes LSU has on the outside. It's pretty stunning. Now, I mentioned we're divvying blame here. I gave you all those names, all those departments, all those things. Quarterback is obviously the biggest story in this game. We're going to take a timeout. We're going to come back and give you my thoughts on Saturday, my thoughts moving forward, and what Frank Wilson had to say today. We'll do that on the LSU quarterbacks when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge, genesisofbatonrouge.com is the website. Every car that's on the lot is online at genesisofbatonrouge.com. GV80, just an awesome midsize SUV. The likelihood is, as you're driving around Capital City today, or if you're listening to us on demand while you're working out or while you're driving around, whatever the case may be, you maybe have never been behind the wheel of a Genesis. Most probably haven't. It's fairly new to the game. And maybe you're in the market for a vehicle right now. Maybe you're not. Maybe that time comes 2026. But when that time does come, if you've never been behind the wheel with Genesis, just put Genesis on your list. Go by and see them. They're on airline at Piku. Incredible facility, phenomenal staff, an amazing line of vehicles. Just go try them out. You'll sense that luxury. It's a luxury brand at a reasonable price. You'll be treated wonderfully there on site at Genesis of Baton Rouge. If you make that purchase, you'll get America's best warranty with it. 3 years, valet complimentary maintenance, just a part of that warranty. It's Genesis of Baton Rouge on airline at Piku and online at genesisofbatonrouge.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Let's talk about the Saints getting in the win column here coming up in our next segment. We'll stick with LSU for now. I wrote this in my column at LouisianaSports.net post-game. It just kind of occurred to me as I was watching the end of the fourth quarter on Saturday night. You know, the LSU-Alabama game has been kind of a defining moment for a lot of LSU's great quarterbacks this century. It started with Rohan Davey throwing for an SEC record in Tuscaloosa. Josh Reed set an SEC record in receiving yards that day as well, but just an amazing performance those guys had in Tuscaloosa. 4 years later, Jamarcus Russell completed overtime pass to Dwayne Bowe to win in 2005. Even 2011, I don't know that I would pin that on Jordan Jefferson and Jarrett Lee as a phenomenal quarterbacking effort in that game. But obviously, that was a huge win in the game of the century, and Jefferson came in and ran the option and got LSU to the finish line with a victory that game. But then you continue to move further down the line, and you look at, Matt Flynn had a huge fourth down conversion to early Doucette to score a touchdown and win that game in 2007 in Tuscaloosa. You look at Joe Burrow in 2019 outdueling Tua Tagovailoa and just scoring a ton of points in that game. You look at Jaden Daniels with the overtime pass to Mason Taylor winning that game, ultimately winning the SEC West that season. Like every single great quarterback you can point to over the last 25 years has had an indelible moment against Alabama. And I say that, and I'm sitting there on Saturday night watching Garrett Nussmeier stand on the sidelines in what could have been his Alabama moment as a senior in Tuscaloosa. It didn't happen. One drive into the third quarter, the decision was made to bench Garrett Nussmeier. And I think it was the right decision. Here's what I think. I think Garrett Nussmeier is a horrible fit for LSU's current personnel. It's taken me a long time to come to that realization, but here I am. Because Garrett Nussmeier is quarterbacking an offense that is the worst in the SEC for the second consecutive season at running the ball. That he has very little to do with that other than the fact that he can't run himself. But like the fact that LSU's offensive line and running backs do not create a push and in fact are the worst at doing so in the SEC puts a ton of pressure on the quarterback then to kind of carry everything. And then the defenses know they don't have to respect the run. They can rush the passer. And he can't evade that rush. And his offensive line, specifically at tackle, where you've got a true freshman on one side and a revolving door at right tackle where you benched Weston Davis and went with Ori Williams, like the most important part of your pass protection formation is leaky. That's the worst situation a pocket passing, immobile quarterback can be in. No run game, bad tackles. Like how? That's the worst recipe you could have for a quarterback that's got Garrett Nussmeier's skill set. For Garrett Nussmeier's skill set to work in the Southeastern Conference in this era of college football, you need a steady ground game and the ability to protect him so that he can go to work down the field. And last year, you did have that protection, and last year he was productive. This year, you don't have the protection, and that happened. Two things happen when that happens. One, you give up pressures, sacks, all that. Two, the quarterback thinks you're going to give up pressures and sacks, so he no longer is as effective reading the field. I think that's happening with Garrett Nussmeier. I think mentally, he's surveying the line of scrimmage more than he's surveying down the field. And that's on him to an extent, but it's also a natural human emotion. So it's a natural human reaction. Like, these guys may not get the job done. Like, I need to brace myself. And because of it, he's playing very poorly. And you needed to go to Michael Van Buren on Saturday. You needed to. Because Van Buren gives you some athleticism. He's not Jaden Daniels. He's not Michael Vick, but he can move. And he did so. And you need someone in this offense that can tuck it and go get you 11 on 3rd and 8. You need someone in this offense who can make that edge rusher who just beat the tackle miss and extend the play. Van Buren did some good things on Saturday. He did those two things I just mentioned, moving around. He also completed less than 50% of his throws. Some of his completions were not good throws that his receivers had to make acrobatic catches on. He's far from a polished product out there. We saw that in fall camp. But the dimension that he offers gives this LSU personnel the best shot. He can run some read option stuff. He can make guys miss in the backfield. He can extend plays. He can tuck it and go. And this is the kind of quarterback, if I have my druthers, that LSU is going to have moving forward. Somebody who can move the sticks when things break down. You look across the SEC, and really, Ty Simpson is the only guy that isn't a really good athlete. And he's a good athlete, but he's not Taylon Green. He's not Marcel Reed. He's not those guys. He is winning it from the pocket, and he's doing a great job of that, and they don't have a great running game. But I would submit that that's probably going to cost Alabama down the stretch. I think it's going to cost them in the playoffs. I mean, they scored 20 points on LSU. But this LSU offense needs Van Buren's help. And so I would start him moving forward. And that's a tough thing because Garrett Nussmeier's put a lot into this program. But he's a bad fit for what LSU currently has. He just is. Now, Frank Wilson was asked about it today. And Frank Wilson was very non-committal. Well, Matt will have the sound on AFR. It's too tight of a window to get it turned around for my show when he has that press conference at 1 o'clock at noon on Mondays. But essentially, and I'm paraphrasing here, Frank Wilson said both guys will get reps this week. Garrett is still going to get number 1 reps this week, and we'll probably play both guys in the game on Saturday. And that's kind of the line he's going to give on Monday. What that looks like in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday practices, we'll see. I would expect both guys will play, and I don't expect that Garrett Nussmeier is just going to be cast aside. Because, one, he's the leader of the team. He's 18. He's a fifth-year senior quarterback, and he's been here for 5 years. And two, it's not like 10 years ago where the backup quarterback 95% of the time was going to be the quarterback the next year. So you start to develop some chemistry and some rhythm and get some reps for next year. Michael Van Buren might be LSU's quarterback next year. Michael Van Buren might be Texas A&M. Well, that's a bad example. Marcel Reed's coming back. He might be SMU's quarterback next year, for all I know. To be clear, that's based on no information. That's just the landscape. Quarterbacks transfer all the time. He might be LSU's starting quarterback. He might be LSU's backup quarterback. He might transfer out. Like, Garrett Nussmeier is not going to be the quarterback next year. But, like, there used to be a time where you would get the backup quarterback reps because he was your guy next year. We don't even have a coaching staff for this year. These guys that are calling plays may not be here next year. So, like, there's not eyes on 2026 in that building the way that there would have been years ago. It's just a different era with transfers, and now you've got a coach firing. So this is about this team. And what they do the next 3 games is about this team. And I think for this team, Garrett Nussmeier is going to be involved, but I think I would go with Michael Van Buren because I think he gives this team the best chance to win. And that's a hard thing to swallow and say because we sat here in August and looked at Heisman odds, and we sat here in August and talked about the college football playoff, and like Garrett Nussmeier still has an opportunity to become the second leading passer in the history of LSU football. Like, that's a realistic possibility for him. I'll have to check and see what the numbers are. I forgot to do that. But it's Hodson, Burrow, and Nussmeier. He's already third, and he can pass Burrow. So to just cast that guy off to the side is a mouthful when you're not even done with the season. And what we saw from Michael Van Buren in August was not super inspiring. Now, keep in mind, second offensive line, not exactly giving you a ton of protection, and, you know, working against an LSU defense can be difficult, but it was not good in August. But maybe he's just kind of a gamer. He was 5 of 11 in the game. And, you know, he needs Trey Green to help him out with the catch there, and that makes it closer to over 50%. But I think that he's the guy that you need to go to from this point. I'm going to talk later in the week about Garrett Nussmeier and his time at LSU and his story. And there were a lot of people that were very critical of Nussmeier for getting emotional once again on the sideline. You can miss me with that. There's a lot of people that are suggesting, like, oh, this kid's making a ton of money. Like, just he's not playing worth a damn. Like, who cares? And, like, I see it as on a more human level than that. It's not like Garrett Nussmeier, like, demanded money or, you know, was the first player to receive any money. Like, he's an SEC quarterback. They get money. And I don't think that because his checking account's bigger than it was 3 years ago, or he makes more money this year than me or you may at your job this year, like, I just don't think that gives you a reasonable reason to go after the kid when he doesn't play well. Now, if he doesn't give effort, if he says something you really don't like, but none of that ever happens. This kid plays as hard as he can, and he cares. Like, in an era where so many players are in this for, okay, where's my NIL deal? I don't really care about the school I'm at. Like, who can pay me the most? This is a kid that stayed here 5 years. It's a kid that really cares about LSU. And for LSU fans to turn on a player that cares that much about LSU and has worked that hard for LSU, like, that's tough for me to sit there and watch. I'll be honest with you. I just told you I don't think he should be the starting quarterback. I just told you I think he's a bad fit for the offense. I just told you I'd go forward with another guy. I'm not absolving Garrett Nussmeier of anything. He has not played well this year. There are reasons for that. I don't know how big the injury was. I don't know how much to pin on the offensive line. I don't know how much to pin on Joe Sloan. I don't know how much to pin exactly on Garrett Nussmeier. But I can tell you confidently that he cares, and that what I led this segment off with, talking about the great quarterbacks that have had their moment against Bama, and for Garrett Nussmeier's senior year Bama game, for him to be holding his helmet on the sideline, by the way, cheering his team on, and then getting emotional at the end because that happened to him, and watching his dream kind of slip away, where he's always, even though he's lived all over the country, wanted to play for LSU, and for that to be slipping away right now, like, that's an emotional thing. It would be more concerning to me if he didn't care, if he was just motionless, if he was emotionless, if he was just, chuckling on the sideline. Like, if he did not care, that would be something that I would care about. Kid that cares too much or gets too emotional, I'm not going to criticize that. His play hasn't been good enough. LSU's offense, as I mentioned in the first segment, hasn't been good enough. But this deal where LSU fans are turning on Garrett Nussmeier turns my stomach a little bit. And I'm apprehensive about Saturday. I'll talk about it later in the week, but I'm apprehensive about being in that stadium on Saturday. And I think y'all get where I'm coming from there. We'll see. Saints got a win. That's a positive for the weekend. Let's talk about that when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com is that website. Jonathan Carver and his team, phenomenal folks to work with on the insurance side of things. If you're a January 1st renewal and you'd like a second set of eyes on your renewal for your commercial insurance program, let the Highland Insurance Group take a look. Like, it's time to do that now. Like, you need a good 6 weeks to get a full audit and then have that new second option presented. You don't want to rush that at the end of the year. A lot of folks out of the office, just not a great time to get that done. If you want a second option, you're a little concerned what your renewal might look like, the Highland Insurance Group is happy to help you out with that. They're the best. They've got incredible technical knowledge, phenomenal relationships throughout the insurance industry. They're an independent broker, which means they can shop with dozens of carriers. They're not just one of these agents that can only sell what they can sell. They've got contracts with carriers all over the place, and they've got clients in all different lines of work, so they'll know what your needs are and where your insurance needs to be placed. So if you've got a January renewal and you'd like a second set of eyes, you'd like a second option, the Highland Insurance Group would be happy to help you out with that. They're here in Baton Rouge. You can fill out the Contact Us form at HighlandIG.com. It's the Highland Insurance Group online at HighlandIG.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Kind of a wacky Sunday in the National Football League. You had the Bills just going way down to the Dolphins there, which was an odd score to look up and see. There were a number of those in the NFL yesterday. It's just a week-to-week league. It really is. I mean, there are some teams that certainly rise to the top over the course of 17 games, but you just see odd results like week in and week out. Like Ravens took it to the Vikings. I know that having Lamar back is a big deal for them. But you saw that the Texans beat the Jaguars. The Rams just went nuts in San Francisco, which was interesting to see. But another one of those results that probably surprised some people was the Saints getting that win over Carolina 17-7 on Sunday. I picked Carolina to win the game, and it was pretty simple. I just felt like the Panthers would run the football on the Saints. They had done that with Rico Dowdle for really the better part of a month, and the Saints have been gashed on the ground more often than not. And the Saints got off the bus on Sunday, and they weren't going to let Rico Dowdle get loose, and he just didn't. He had 18 carries for 53 yards. That's less than 3 yards per carry. His long on the day, he had busted some really explosive runs really every week, and his long run was 14 yards in the game. And so I know that the story for most feels like Tyler Shuck because he gets to win in his second start, and he looked pretty efficient, and we'll talk about him, certainly. That's a nice storyline in the game. But the story in this game is the defense. The Saints held the Panthers to 7 points. They shut down that rushing attack, and we did say back on Friday, like, Bryce Young is still one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the NFL. Statistically, he is. Record-wise, he is. He just is. He's not a very good NFL quarterback. The Panthers are winning because their defensive front with Derek Brown is very, very disruptive, and they run the ball very, very well. And that's why they were winning games. And the Saints took that running game away and put more on Bryce Young, and you saw what Bryce Young is, 17 out of 25, 124 yards, turned the ball over with an interception, got sacked a couple times. His QBR, I got a chuckle out of this when I looked it up today, QBR of 13.2 for Bryce Young on Sunday. So major hat tip to the New Orleans Saints defense, to Brandon Staley, to the two linebackers, Demario Davis and Pete Werner. Those two guys, it's one of those deals. Sometimes I like to see what Pro Football Focus tells me after what the TV tells me, or if I'm at Tiger Stadium covering LSU, like what the game tells me. And I'm watching the game, and I'm like, Davis and Werner are everywhere. Like you just sense that watching the game, and then you turn on and they were their two highest graded players on the defense on Pro Football Focus. When you face a team that is having the success the Panthers are having running the football, they've got a big, physical, mean offensive front that's done a really nice job this year. Your linebackers have got to show up, and they've got to bring their hammer. And Demario Davis and Pete Werner, I thought, were awesome in this game. Now, let's go to Tyler Shuck. Obviously, that's number two here beyond the defense, which held the Panthers to 7 points. I thought Shuck looked really comfortable. I really did. I thought that he oftentimes held the ball and got through reads and progressions. He mentioned in the postgame a couple of his throws were really late in his progression. Thought the touchdown that he threw out to Juwan Johnson was a really nice play. And, hey, you hit a big play to Chris Olave. There was a lot of positive chatter on Twitter about the throw to Olave on the deep ball. I thought it was a good throw. I think it helps when the corner falls. I think that's generally speaking a helpful thing. I'm not taking anything away from Tyler Shuck on the play, but the corner did fall down. But it was dropped in nicely. Olave makes the catch. And, hey, you got to take shots. You got to push the ball down the field. That was my biggest issue with Spencer Rattler early in the season, is there just wasn't enough effort to get the ball down the field. He finally did in weeks 4, 5, 6, like a little bit down the line, but just too much around the line of scrimmage. And Shuck put the ball up there. This guy's a first-round pick. We've criticized him all year, and I think for good reason. But you've got, if that's one of your guys out there, and now you don't have Shaheed anymore, you've got to try to get down the field. And they take the shot, and Olave comes down with a 62-yard touchdown. Juwan Johnson had a 52-yard catch. And he got a lot of different guys involved. He got Kamara involved on the checkdowns 3 times, hit Foster Moreau twice. Vele had a 15-yard catch. Sire Mitchell-Patton had a catch. Didn't really count on him being involved in the game. But I thought that Shuck just looked comfortable. Let's keep in mind, like, to me, if the Saints defense stinks on Sunday and the Panthers score 31 points and New Orleans scores 17 and plays exactly the way they did on offense, I don't think we're throwing an absolute party for Tyler Shuck for creating 17 points on the road at Carolina. But I did think it was good. I did think he looked comfortable. I did think he distributed the ball well. He shows some traits that you like. And this was always going to be an opportunity, despite what the Panthers' record is. They were above 500. They were 5-4. This is not a great team in Carolina. This is always going to be a chance for the Saints to be competitive. I picked them to lose. I picked them to lose by 2 scores because I was disheartened by what you were seeing by the defense in previous weeks. And the offense wasn't a world beater on Sunday, but the defense showed up and played awesome. And I thought Shuck played winning football. Stat line, good, 19 of 27. 282 and 2 touchdowns. Didn't have an interception. QBR was 65. But he did what he needed to do to win the football game, which was make some real plays on third downs, hit the deep shot when it was there, check it down when it was there, don't turn it over, and let the defense carry the day. And then in the end, you saw Taysom Hill come in and kind of run a bit of a 2-minute offense, 4-minute offense, as it were, to run the clock out and get the win. And I thought that was really, really good. The win is nice for the guys in the locker room. It's a slog to go through and lose as many games as the Saints have lost. I know there's a portion of the fan base that's kind of looking and going, really like to get the top pick in the draft, like don't want to win too many games. And I get that. It's not the spot you want to be in as a fan base to kind of have that thought creeping around in the back of your mind. But on the other side of things, ideally you want Tyler Shuck to emerge as your starting quarterback so you can use that early pick that you're going to have in this draft somewhere else. That's what you'd like to do. And I thought Sunday was a step in the right direction. You now enter the bye week. You've got some good vibes, some good feeling about it. You've got a quarterback who's probably going to enter the bye week with some confidence because you come off of a win. All that is very, very positive for the culture in that locker room. It's very difficult for a first-year coach keep banging his head against the wall when you're sitting there at 1-8. And now you go to a bye week. You're going to come back, home game, Falcons. Dome probably has some life to it because you're coming off a win, and Shuck played pretty well. Then you've got a trip to Miami that is manageable. I don't love your chances at Tampa, but then your next 3 are eminently winnable when you got the Carolina coming to the Dome, the Jets coming to the Dome, and take a trip to Tennessee. And maybe you start to see a little bit of that energy come up. Maybe you start to see things start to change a little bit on the back half. You need something good to happen before things can change. And to me, you saw some good things happen on Sunday. None of it was incredibly flashy. Like it's a workmanlike 17-7 win, but it's a step in the right direction. And again, on a day where there were some results where you look at the scoreboard and go, huh, really? Like the Saints got it done. And that's a really, really good sign for this team. You're not as good as you were 3 weeks ago because you've traded away your best offensive weapon and you traded away one of your starting offensive linemen and your center's out for the year. And like you have some significant issues, and they're not done playing clunkers. They're not done playing stinkers. They're not done losing games. But you take the positive where it is. I have not been very optimistic about the Saints really all of this calendar year. I haven't, and I think that's been warranted, and I think that that's a realistic reflection of where this franchise is. I ripped the entire front office last week, and I think for good reason because of where this franchise is. But you also got to call a spade when it's on the positive side of things. And Sunday was a positive for the Saints. It was a positive for Tyler Shuck. It was certainly a positive for Brandon Staley and that defense. And hat tip to them for getting it done and getting a win, coming back in for the bye week. It'll be a more enjoyable bye week coming off a victory for the Saints, that's for sure. So let's look at the Saints. Jordan, you I'm assuming watched it. It was a noon game, maybe not a nap time kickoff for 3 o'clock there. So yeah, I'm assuming you were able to watch there. What'd you see?
Tyler's got me pretty shucked up, so okay. that's pretty good. I'll say this. You did say he felt like he played a lot free. I feel like he played like he didn't care. Not care in a bad way, but like there was no ramifications to like, let me just go ahead and play ball. Like he played just it wasn't, he popped off the screen and did the most amazing stuff.
He didn't throw for 425 and 4 touchdowns or anything.
But he did what needed to be done to win the game, and that's all you can ask for. You did bring up how we got a little bit of life. You got the Falcons is reeling. You got them coming in a couple weeks. Dome's going to be live. But you kind of don't want to keep winning, but you want to see what you got out of Shuck. So, and then you just said with the Jets and the Titans, like those games are going to be ooh-wee. Those are going to be we trying to fight for last. But you got to take the positives. Defense played a hell of a game. And honestly, the final score was 17-7. But it felt bigger than that a little bit. Maybe because you had the all whites. I know you're not a uniform guy. The icy all whites.
I'm a huge uniform guy. I'm okay with the Saints wearing the all whites.
I'm about to say the all whites. When you look good, you feel good. You feel good, you play good. I just feel like we had to win that game because the last time you wore them, Seattle just closed the book on you fast. So the positives are you got to see what you got in Shuck. You got something, maybe. But let's keep the momentum rolling. Let's beat the Falcons, and then we'll talk about losing after that.
It's going to be tough to lose some of those games after that.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Real tough.
Saints can probably do it, but it's going to be a little bit more difficult than it was against some of the better teams early on in the schedule. So that's a look at the New Orleans Saints. Ross Jackson's got our Saints coverage over at LouisianaSports.net. He's got a Pro Football Focus piece that just went up on the grades there. Top 5 graded players, bottom 5 graded players. Tyler Shuck, one of the top 5 graded players on PFF for New Orleans back on Sunday. So a great step in the right direction for the rookie quarterback. Ross has got all your coverage there for free on LouisianaSports.net. When we come back, a report from the Advocate yesterday, as well as some writing earlier today on where LSU is in the buyout with Brian Kelly. They have offered 2 settlements. Those have been rejected. There's been a deadline issued. What's the situation with LSU and Brian Kelly and the buyout? We do that when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Vaughn and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. One of the jobs that they do a lot of there at One Bath and Closets, and if this is something that you're familiar with, you may need to pick up the phone and make a phone call. If you've got a bathroom that maybe was designed in the late 80s, early to mid 90s, maybe even right around the turn of the century, if that's the case and you've got a standing shower and a big old jacuzzi, they do transformations for those dated bathrooms all the time. They take that standing shower and make that into a linen closet, and then they take the spot where that big jacuzzi tub is that you may never use, maybe it doesn't function anymore, and turn that whole space into a walk-in shower. Completely transforms the look of your bathroom. They can handle all the woodworking and the vanities as well as the shower and the tub. All that comes under one contractor. It's David Vaughn, One Bath and Closets. You don't have to make multiple calls. you just make the call to David and his team. They come in and transform your bathroom, modernize your home, add value to your home, make it more comfortable, stylish, beautiful. That's what they do at One Bath and Closets. So get that free consultation. That part doesn't cost you anything. It's all there at onebathandclosets.com, onebathandclosets.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
All right, wrapping up hour number 1 here. We'll get to my SEC picks against the spread. Talk some SEC football in the first segment of hour number 2. We'll have Denton Day along with us in 45 minutes talking national college football as well. So plenty to do. I appreciate you starting your work week here with us. Brian Kelly, there's been some reporting. The Advocate has uncovered some information and wrote about it yesterday and then again today about the buyout situation with Brian Kelly. As you're all well aware, upon the termination of Brian Kelly, he was owed $54 million contractually. That was 90% of the remainder of his contract that runs through 2031. So LSU owed him essentially $800,000 a month if you just wanted to continue to pay him through 2031, $54 million. The thought from the outside was that LSU would attempt some sort of settlement with Brian Kelly. And in the Freedom of Information reporting that Chris Nakamoto did over at WAFB, he found an email from Brian Kelly sent to Scott Woodward, Burge Osbury, and some LSU administrators that said, as per our discussion, I'd be open to a settlement of some sorts, of course, if it makes sense financially. And so we now have learned that LSU reportedly offered Kelly $20 million lump sum up front. And then later on, upped that to $25 million lump sum up front. And it appears that Kelly has rejected both of those. And I would submit that's the right thing to do. Brian Kelly agreed to a contract with LSU. He's owed that money. Now, the other side of this is why would anyone settle for less money? Well, if Brian Kelly just wants money up front and wants to make sure that whatever he collects from LSU is not offset if he wants to go do television or if he wants to go coach again next year, then yeah, it might make sense to take a little bit less than the 54 in a lump sum up front, and then you can continue your earnings. Because if he is going to make $800,000 a month from LSU and he becomes a head coach next year and he's getting paid, $600,000 a month, then he's only going to get $200,000 a month from LSU, because all LSU has to do is make up the difference if he decides to coach somewhere else. So there are some scenarios in which the settlement does make sense. It's not complete pie in the sky for LSU to look for a settlement. There are financial reasons why it might make sense. It's not going to make sense if you cut $34 million off of the entirety of the agreement. That was never going to work. So Brian Kelly's attorneys reportedly, according to the Advocate, have given LSU a deadline of 5 o'clock Central Time today. So you're talking about 3 hours and change from today to state that they are going to pay for the remainder of that. They intend to pay the remainder of the content. Now, that doesn't mean that LSU can't offer a settlement at any point. They certainly can. You're still under that contract, and you are contractually allowed to pay Brian Kelly $800,000 a month until 2021. You don't have to lump sum anything or agree to settlement terms at all. As long as LSU says, yeah, we'll give you $800,000 a month the rest of the way, you can continue to negotiate that. And if you find a settlement you think makes sense, you can do that. I'm not privy to those conversations. No one is, and we'll see what the result of it is. I know this has garnered a lot of eyeballs from around the country. I know that obviously the governor got involved 2 weeks ago. There's been a lot of discussion about this. I don't know ultimately what the final decision is going to be. I don't get the sense from the reporting that we've done that there's a lot of animus here. I don't get the sense that LSU is trying to pull a fast one. That certainly could change if different things are brought up and then that there actually is some fighting over money. I think right now it's more about just trying to make it make sense in terms of dollars and cents between LSU and Brian Kelly. If you're LSU, of course, you'd like to conserve some of your boosters' funds to go hire a new coach. But as we heard it from the Board of Supervisors 2 weeks ago, I have no indication that the state's going to be on the hook for any of this or that it's going to be an issue to come up with the funds. I realize the governor said that no one had run up to the mansion with the $54 million check. I don't anticipate that happening either. I think LSU and Brian Kelly will work this out between their legal teams, and the funds will get paid. How that ends up happening, I think, it really depends on what Brian Kelly wants to do moving forward. If Brian Kelly is like I would be at his age and saying, I'm not going to get in this rat race anymore, I'm just going to collect the money, I don't know that you're going to settle significantly off that $54 million. But if you can work in that his future earnings are not going to be offset, maybe you can shave a few bucks off the top here. But we'll just have to see when that day comes. For right now, LSU's just got to declare they're going to honor that contract in the next 3.5 hours. I anticipate they will do that, and those will be ongoing. I can envision a scenario where lawyers get involved and this thing ends up in a courtroom. I just don't know if that's going to happen. So I think that the cooler heads will prevail and that this happens. But to be clear, on my end, like if I'm Brian Kelly and I agreed to a contract worth $95 million, and in that contract it says you owe me 90% of the remainder of the contract if I'm terminated without cause, like I'm going to need the money. Like I don't think you would be hard pressed to find anybody who disagrees with that. I'm sure there's someone out there, but it's certainly not me. Like if I agree to a contract that says that's what I'm owed, I'm going to take what is owed to me financially for that. So we'll see what happens there. But right now, nothing imminent as far as checks being cut. I think right now the plan for LSU is just to continue to pay that monthly installment, and then if there's something reached, you can change the way that shakes out. We'll see. I mean, I'm looking at the Ford chat. LSU agreed to the contract, pay BK his money. I'm right there with you. Like, you agree to that deal, you do it. And there are plenty of people that are real cranky with Scott Woodward about that. I understand that, too. It didn't work. The coaching hire did not work. The terms of the contract now are a burden. I just think the way that everything was handled 2 weeks ago, probably not the way I would have done that. So let's finish up hour number 1 here. If you missed anything that we did today on demand, you can catch it wherever you find your sound. Just search Hunt Palmer Show. You can check us out, Hunt on LSU on YouTube or wherever you find your podcast, Hunt on Saints, wherever you find your podcast, or on YouTube as well. First 30 minutes, we're on LSU, basically on the offense and what to do with the quarterback situation moving forward. We also touched on the Saints as they got in the win column back on Sunday. Lots moving in hour number 2 as well. We'll talk to Denton Day 35 minutes from now when we come back. What happened in the Southeastern Conference on Saturday? We'll do that with my picks when we come back after SportsCenter.
The Hunt Palmer Show.